How do you play by ear? This is a question that I recently got kind of based off of the last couple videos that I've been doing of a classical guitarist attempts to play, whatever famous electric guitarist there is out there. And I got some people asking, how do you play by ear and kind of what are the basics? So today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about my own approach to how I play by ear. This is not something that I practice every day, which is kind of funny why I'm making this video. I practice classical guitar pretty much every single day, which is my main expertise, which is what I'm very devoted to. Playing by ear, not so much. But I'm going to talk to you about the basics of playing by ear and my approach so that you can get a better understanding of how you can do it and how you can try it. So a couple basic things. The first thing that you need to know are your scales, right? Like scales are the building blocks of most music. So you need to know at the very, very least, you got to know your major scales, okay? I would also add you need to know your minor scales, and then especially for guitar, you need to know your major and minor pentatonic scales, okay? So those are like the four main scales that you should know. And ideally you should know them up and down the neck. Why? Because once you're familiar with how the scales sound, you will hear them everywhere in music, and you'll hear oftentimes little fragments of scales. And when you can identify those scales with your ears because you've practiced them so many times, basically all you have to do is just find what key it's in, and then you can play the scale fragment, right? Or you can figure it out fairly easily what scale it is because you can recognize that. So you got to know your major and minor scales, and then your pentatonic major and minor scales, okay? The next thing I would say is that you need to know your chords, kind of in the same way or in the same respect that you need to be able to identify the quality of a chord. Now what I mean by quality is the chord major, is the chord minor, is the chord minor 7, major 7, right? So like, let's say I play this chord. You should be able to tell that that's a major 7 chord, right? And you should be able to tell without even looking at my left hand, right? You should be able to hear that and say, oh yeah, that sounds like a major 7 chord, easy, right? Then all you have to do is use your ear and figure out the pitch, right? So it's a D major 7 chord. You need to be able to recognize at the most fundamental level, like the basic chord qualities. So that would be like major, minor, major 7, minor 7, I skipped dominant 7, half diminished 7, and then fully diminished 7. Oops. Right? At the most basic level, you should be able to identify those just by hearing them. Now, how do you get good at that? One is it just comes down to a matter of practice. I remember when I was younger, I don't even know what it was. I used to play with some like app on my phone that was like a music ear training app. So you might search for one of those where you can like put up a bunch of options, like all the options that I just went over, major, minor, major 7, minor 7. And the app will like play one of those chords, and then you have to guess, okay, is it major 7, is it minor 7? And it'll tell you if you're right or wrong. Those are really useful, and they're really, really helpful. The other thing that I would say that's also good to know are intervals, okay? So an interval is just the distance between two notes, right? So you need to know or be able to recognize like what you're hearing is, do you hear a minor second? Do you hear a major second? Minor third, major third, all of those. Because a lot of times, maybe you hear a guitarist do something like this. Oops. Right, and you need to be able to identify, okay, he's playing 6th, right? I don't even have to look at somebody's fingers. I can just hear with my ear that, oh, those are 6ths, right? Or maybe if it's like, it's a 3rd, right? That makes it very, very useful to identify those, because then all you have to do is just figure out the pitch, right? If you have perfect pitch, that's a blessing. Or is it? I don't have perfect pitch, but as long as you have decent relative pitch, right, you can use your ear and you'll know if you're too low or if you're too high, and then trial and error until you figure that out, basically. So those are kind of the basics that I would say you need to know, and you need to have those covered. I am offering lessons over the summer. If you guys are interested, I'll leave an email link if you want to email me and contact me about lessons. It's something that we could work on. But also, another thing you have to do, two other things. One is you just got to practice, right? I know this might seem like a lot of information. It takes time. It doesn't just happen like that. but you just got to practice, and you have to practice listening a lot, which is actually the fun part. I remember when I was first like learning my scales and learning my pentatonic scales, and then I would start listening to music, and like when I would hear a guitar part, I'd be like, oh, like that's a pentatonic scale. Like I started understanding, and I was able to process a little bit more what I was hearing, because before I would just hear music, I guess like any normal person, and you just hear it for what it is. That's it, which is nice. There's nothing wrong with that. But now, once you start to develop your ear a little bit, you start to hear like relationships of chords, you start to hear certain scales, you start to hear chord qualities, and it really makes music listening quite enjoyable and more fun almost, because you can kind of like follow where it's going musically. So that's always fun. And then not only just with music, but you can practice listening in your everyday life. I remember a lot of times, like if I was crossing the street, and when you're crossing the street, you hear the little something like that. It makes the sound, and I would always like cross the street and I'm like, oh, that's a major third. Keep me do, right? Or sometimes it's out of tune. Sometimes it's like, right? Yeah, that sounds more like it. But I'd be like, oh, that's a major third, but it's a little bit out of tune. Or I don't know, if I was like walking by a vending machine or something, or a Coke machine, and like it has that hum to it, like, I'd be like, what note is that machine making right now? And you just start to listen to things. Or maybe like if you hear a car horn, what note was that? You know, I don't know. I can guess. Or if it's something around your house, like you hear something, maybe like, I don't know, something on the TV, you can be like, what note was that? And like you can pause it and you can like run over to your piano or your instrument and like check the note. So it's kind of a fun way to practice using your ear, and kind of a practical way to apply it. And if you have friends that are also into music, that makes it fun, because you guys can like discuss those things together. You can try to like, I don't know, listen to a song and try to figure it out by ear. You can also play with your friends. Could be on any instrument, but like maybe your friend plays something and then you try to like mimic that on your instrument, right? You guys can go back and forth and take turns and things like that. And you can set different parameters too. Like maybe you say, okay, let's use the G major scale, only notes in the G major scale. You play something and I'll try to play it back, and vice versa. So those are kind of my thoughts on how to play by ear. Practice your scales, know your intervals, know your chord qualities, and practice listening. And then just do it, basically. Like listen to a song that you want to learn and try to learn it by ear. But start with something not so complicated. Like don't start with the crazy Tim Hensons and Matteo Mancuso stuff that I've been trying, because that's like, even for me, that's like kind of crazy. But I do it for you guys. So those are my thoughts on how to play by ear. Again, I am offering private guitar lessons, so let me know if you guys are interested in that via the email link in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.